Hi, my lovely internet friends. How's your characters coming along? I know for a lot of people, they tend to spend an awful lot of time dwelling on the plot. But the thing is while that is exciting and often the hook that will encourage a reader to look at your book, ideally they stay for your characters. You only have to think about detective books, for example. We love to read about the nuances and the twists and turns in a plot, but why do we keep going back to Sherlock Holmes books in particular, or Hercule Poirot, or anybody else that has carved a distinct personality? That character creates an emotional investment. Readers want to cheer when their characters succeed, they cry when they fail, and sometimes they yell at them. I know I quite often get readers telling me that they really felt like they wanted to slap one of my characters around the head because they're being silly. If your characters feel like real people, then your readers will become invested in them and want to keep reading your work. The first thing, of course, is that characters have to have certain characteristics. For example, what does your character want? This could be their goal. This could be the thing that drives their choices. But whatever it is, the character needs to have a desire, a very clear desire. If it doesn't have that to start with, then your character is just going to drift along. And drifting characters that don't grow don't stick in a reader's mind either. So you want to be thinking about, what are the things that drive your character? What is it that creates that journey you're about to write for them? And as with most books, of course, you have to have a certain level of conflict. Every story, whether it be a romance or a detective a detective novel, or a sci-fi. It doesn't matter what genre. If you're writing fiction, there has to be an element of conflict. So it would be a good idea to also consider, what does your character fear? What's the thing that holds him back? Or what's the thing that pushes them forward even if they don't want to go? There's that push and pull between the desire for what they want and the fears that they have for whatever reason. They have to be afraid of losing something or revealing something. Sometimes just the fear of failure can be enough, but you want something in there that's going to create conflict. Thirdly, and something that I consider is really important, is creating flaws in your characters. I am one of those romance writers that does write an awful lot of tall, really buff, long-haired, or tattooed, or whatever else characters. I can't help it. I have a type. But the thing is that no matter what or who my character is, they need to have a flaw. It can be something silly, like they don't notice things around them. Maybe they leave towels on the floor, stupid little things. Maybe they're always late for appointments. Whatever it is, characters who make mistakes, characters who can get messy, characters that don't win all the time is what makes them interesting, because readers can relate to them. And that is hugely important. You want your readers to think, along the lines of, oh, yeah, I've done something like that before. I know what that's like. And because of that, they'll feel more of a connection with you. Your readers will feel more of a connection with that character, and they'll keep reading. Now, a lot of people I know, particularly new authors, go into huge detail about the character's backstory. They've got everything from the way they were abused as children, or maybe they were bullied at school, or maybe they didn't have any money or anything else like that. And backstory is important in that it gives the reader a chance to learn why a character acts in a particular way. But if you info dump that backstory, you've lost it. You've lost its impact. The key to developing a backstory and threading it through your story is that you're sprinkling just enough of it for the reader to be thinking, yeah, that makes sense. And it adds depth to your character. But if you go into a huge long monologue within the first couple of chapters about how your main character is this, and this, you've lost it. You've lost your reader, because they don't need to know all that wonderfully crafted information that you've had. It's enough that you know why they act the way they do. And then it is up to you as the author to feed in just enough details for the character's actions to make sense. Another way that's really important in helping your characters stand out is making sure that they have their own distinct voice, their way of speaking, and their dialogue. You should be able to, if you're writing a dialogue between your main characters or your main characters and other people, the best way to know that your character is well enough defined is to be able to write that dialogue without dialogue tags, and for your readers to understand who's speaking. Now, clearly they won't if the main character is speaking to secondary characters, because they won't be as well developed. But if you have two main characters, for example, then your readers should know by the way each character has their own different, it's like their voice pattern, the way they speak. You probably know that if you listen to conversations that your friends are having, how they might use specific words, speak in a specific way. Maybe somebody that always seems to phrase something as a question. See, maybe that's a little flaw, where every time your main character is asked a question, he answers it with another one. Things like that. But your voice and dialogue, whether they be, do they use slang? Do they swear? Are they more formal? Are they a rambly sort of speaker, or do they speak very concisely? These things also help to illustrate what type of character they are. And so that is a really important layer when you're creating your character. The thing you want to watch, though, and I'll just make this little aside, is be very careful about using too much dialect. Because I know for a lot of readers, they find it difficult to follow. And I have seen numerous reviews on various books where an author has done this, and the readers have become annoyed with it because they felt that it's taken away from the story. So just be very careful with that sort of thing. You want to make the reading of your book as comfortable for your reader as possible. There is also a huge part of a character that comes from how they interact with other people. That can really help create an image in the reader's mind of who those people are. I have in the past written, and still do, written about a number of lone wolf characters. But even lone wolf characters still have to interact with people, whether it be a server in a retail store or somebody they work with. No people, unless you're writing a story of one person on a desert island, then there's a good chance that your character's going to have to interact with other people. So give that a chance. Show who your character is by the distinct way they interact with the people around them. And finally, you want to give your characters agency. A passive character is really easy to forget. A character who acts, and not just reacts, but acts, is someone they're going to remember. Even if your character is in a situation they can't control, write them into situations where they have choices. Remember the flawed aspect. They don't have to make the right choice, but they should still make decisions. They should still have that certain type of agency that is going to help them to be remembered. I'm so sorry. They're going to be remembered by the reader. And finally, make sure that your character grows. A reader's most enjoyable characters are going to be those who progress through the story towards achieving their goals, which you set at the beginning, but that they grow personally, because that's what we all want to see. That's what the reader's been rooting for. So that's the sort of thing that we want to create in our readers for our characters. At the heart of all of this is empathy. Readers don't need to agree with a character, but they need to understand them. They need to see why villains like Loki, for example, they stick with us because they're not evil for the sake of it. The reader can see the hurt, the desire, the logic that drives them. When you can make your reader say, well, hey, I might not have liked what he did, but I get why he did it, then you know that you've got something that works. So what do you think? Is there something that you think has helped for you? Are you reconsidering your characters? Are they perhaps too perfect? Do they perhaps not have any goals? What is it you look for when you're crafting your characters? I'd really love to know. Please pop that in the comments below. And in the meantime, yes, please excuse the scarf. It's actually really cold here today. But I post long form content on Mondays and Thursdays. And if I've been any help at all, please hit the like button, as I'm still trying to get YouTube to realize that I'm back from the year-long absence I had. And hopefully these videos will start to get seen in a little bit wider audience, which would be very helpful. But if I did help you, please let me know. If you think I'm bullshit, let me know. If you think there's something I've missed, please let me know, because I'm trying to build a community here, and your comments may help another reader or another author about something that I've forgotten. So I will look forward to responding to your comments. And until next time, keep writing, my friends.